Here we go. We're back. Fingers crossed we could definitely get the rest of the trip done to Calais. We're somewhere in Germany. We did get past, if I remember correctly, we got past Frankfurt. So we're not that far away from Duisburg. And then from that point on, we should be able to complete the rest of the journey into Calais. And if I remember correctly, actually, the end of the route might actually be in Lee. It might be in Lee. Well, we'll find out. Yeah. I'll just... Okay. There we go. We can now look at the rest of the drive. Oh, perfect. Yep, so it ends in Lee. We're not that far away from finishing the drive, actually. Should be able to complete the rest of it. Getting low on fuel though, so I should probably keep that in mind.
So that we can help make energy prices more predictable for everyone. And so the 8 million homes and businesses who rely on us for their energy today can rely on us tomorrow too. That's enough talking. Let's get on with the doing. British Gas.
I'm Dr. Michael Simmons, lead clinician at TDC Implant Centers. Our Smile in a Day dental implant treatment restores full sets of natural-looking teeth, so you can enjoy eating, socializing, and smiling again without worry or embarrassment.
It's built up my confidence and how I feel about myself and how I feel about my smile. I wish I'd done it 10 years earlier.
Talk to us at TDC to see how we can make your loosened missing teeth or dentures a thing of the past in one day.
Right.
I said to several people I would pay double what I paid to have the
Right,
smile and
so
the enjoyment that I get now from life.
seeing my fuel range is not as easy as I thought it would be.
I'm Julius Caesar, an emperor, not a tradesperson. But if I was, I'd be on Checkatrade.
So I think in that case, we refuel at Duisburg. Yeah, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to keep that in mind.
T's and C's apply.
As Bethany opened her Amazon parcel, her heart began to race. Waterproof LCD display and heart rate monitoring. This fitness tracker won first place with Bethany for quality and price. 5 stars from Bethany. With star reviews from you and star prices from us, start your search on Amazon today.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
With Enterprise, whatever vehicle you need, whenever you need it.
Katie's come to play. Tom, cue the whinging vitriolic Remainers as they call in vile as ever. I would vote to leave 100 times, she says. Back to calls on that in just a moment. The number of abortions in England and Wales has risen sharply, with a charity saying that growing financial pressure on families could mean it continues to rise. The numbers have increased by 17% from just over 105,000 between January and June 2021 to 123,000 over the same period in 2022, according to statistics from the Department of Health and Social Care. Claire Murphy is Chief Executive at the British Pregnancy Advisory Service. Thank you very much, Steve, for coming on. I wonder what evidence there might be to suggest or to give a reason as to why there are more abortions happening.
Thanks, Tom. Well, the reasons for abortion will always be complex and very individual to that individual woman who can come to see us. But absolutely, I think one of the key issues we are seeing is the role that financial pressures are playing on women's choices around either starting a family or expanding a family. I mean, more than half of the women we see are already mothers, and women and their partners are making sometimes quite tough choices about what's right for them and their families in the context of some really difficult financial circumstances and increasingly difficult financial circumstances.
And are you seeing, Claire, people saying that? Clearly, they don't have to give a reason for it, but is that
Oh
evidenced
wow,
by
the frame
what you're seeing and
spike.
hearing?
Well, they do have to
It's
give
all
reason
the
for it,
people
unfortunately,
rendering
but,
in.
Yeah, that's the nature of abortion laws in our country today. There's no right to an abortion. A woman has to clearly explain why she's seeking an abortion. And so, yes, these are factors that are playing out in discussions. It might not be the only reason. And, you know, I mean, the other issue I think women are facing at the moment is there have been challenges in accessing contraceptive services to a degree, particularly some of the long-acting reversibles that some women may prefer, these sort of fit and forget methods. But yes, this has been an ongoing issue now. I mean, financial factors have long played a role in women's decisions, but I think we are seeing some of the acute pressures that we're hearing on the news every day. Cost of living increases, and obviously if your mortgage has doubled practically overnight, then that has very, very serious consequences for what you think you're going to be able to afford for yourself and your family. As I say, half of them we see already have children, and so they are having to make choices about what's right for their family.
Really good to talk to you. Thank you for your time. Claire Murphy, Chief Executive at the
Whoa.
British Pregnancy Advisory Service. I mean, based on what Claire's telling us there, I can absolutely well imagine that is becoming much more of the reason why people are seeking abortions. And I guess that there might be a kind of generational view in this. The birth rate isn't what it used to be. There are fewer people having more babies around the Western world, not just in the UK. And I think cost. You can never afford to have a child. The only time at which you can afford to have a child, you know, you're going to be at a stage of life where you probably can't. So, but the difficulties now are so great on families that you can see why people don't. 03456060973. Phil, I'll come to your call in just a few moments. Just want to flag something. A couple of people have mentioned it already. Mr. Habib, who was on at the start of the programme, also featured in a programme called Question Time. I'm a regular viewer of it, but I did sit and watch some of it last night because it was a Brexit special. It had within the audience only those who had voted to leave. And there were some interesting expositions on why people voted to leave. Obviously, democratic deficits and immigration and control and roofers.
I'm anti-Brexit was because we seem to keep to all the rules, and many foreign countries didn't. I'm just talking about people that go up on roofs, for one thing. We kept, when they brought the rules in about the safety guards, we took that on board. But when you went to France or Germany or something, they were all up on their roofs with nothing. And we were paying the cost of having to do it the right way, and they weren't. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I voted to come out.
Roofs. There was this analysis.
Yes, the thing is with the government, they're not talking to anybody. They're like people with their head in a paper bag at the moment. All right.
And this was the reaction of the panel after that.
Oh, God.
Sorry, that was the Archbishop. Okay. Phil's in Swansea. Phil.
It's just laughing at the last clip. Good afternoon. I wanted to leave and still the question came up again.
What?
Well, let's start from the top. If you look at the American, the USA flag with stars and stripes, the stars are arranged in this famous sort of lattice formation.
I'm really sorry, my friend. I haven't got the time for that. Why would you vote again tomorrow to leave?
Because there's the stars were originally arranged in a circle on a background exactly identical to the European Union flag, which it tells me there's a continuation of an idea.
Whoa.
Oh, for God's sake, Philip.
I've got a book here by someone called Noam Chomsky. It's called Hegemony or Best, subtitled America's Quest for Global Domination. Why ask, do you think it's a coincidence that the European Union flag is an identical copy of the American Union flag as it was during the Civil War? Is that a coincidence? Or did the designers of the European Union flag say, well, it's a Jenny pattern, let's adopt that? Or do you think perhaps, flags have a design to reflect the ideology involved behind the state or government involved? It's a simple question.
Can I give you my answer?
Go on.
Oh, God.
He's gone. Ethan's in Belfast. Hi.
Oh, hi there.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. In answer to the question of why would you vote to leave tomorrow, we've got a conspiracy theories about the American and European flags. What do you do other than, I'm afraid, just have to sort of dismiss it?
Yeah, I just had flashbacks to 2016. I can't believe these things are still being said, but I phoned because I heard that he was on the radio in Northern Ireland earlier today.
Yep, silly guy.
In such a flippant and dismissive way, saying this is the new night, Brexit, Holy Grail, put a border on the island of Ireland between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Nobody wants that. Nobody serious and knowledgeable has proposed that.
And it's the same arguments. It's the same arguments that were being made in 2016, 2017, 2018 about technology that doesn't exist, doing things that people don't want, a physical border on the island of Ireland. And if that's the way in which they think they can make Brexit better, it's not going to happen. Listen, thank you very much indeed for your call. Coming up,
President Biden embraces India's leader, rejects China's, and has questions to answer about the Titanic submersible. My American Week is next.
news headlines. Amelia Cobbs.
A man will be sentenced next month after being found guilty of the murder of Sergeant Matt Ragnar in Croydon. Measures have been announced to provide more support for people with mortgages as interest rates continue to rise. And security officers at Heathrow Airport have called off strikes this summer after agreeing to a new pay deal. LBC weather, rain moving across the north tonight, drier elsewhere, a low of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are delays on the M1 northbound. Traffic's being held at junction 8 for Hemel Hempstead because of an accident. On the M25 anti-clockwise, they're accused from junction 21 for the M1 to junction 20 for Kings Langley. That's because of an accident. That's on the hard shoulder.
Okay, why are my brakes so extreme?
Between Seven Sisters Road and Endymion Road because of a fuel spillage. In Upton, Woodgrange Road is closed in both directions. That's because of a fire in a building between Nursery Lane and Romford Road, so there are queues. On the Underground, there's no service on the Piccadilly line between Hammersmith and Acton Town, or between Rayners Lane and Uxbridge because of problems with the signals. And there are severe delays on the Elizabeth line between Whitechapel and Shenfield, also because of some problems with the signals.
Coming up at 6 on LBC, Paul Brandt.
Rishi Sunak says he's totally 100% on it. On what? A hiding to an election defeat? How do you rate his performance?
Paul Brandt on LBC.
I need a big flavour.
A what?
I mean a favour. Sorry, I think I need a wrap. I mean nap.
Sounds like someone has flavour on the brain. Get wrapped up in flavour with McDonald's Big Flavour Wraps. The sweet chili chicken one. Today's $1.99 wrap of the day. From 11 a.m. Wrap of the day discount was available on delivery. The price may vary, subject to availability.
This is LBC.
Does your broadband slither around your home? And at peak times, do things feel a little constricted? Well, not when you get full fiber broadband from EE. You get the peak time speeds you pay for. Count on EE, full fiber broadband, powered by BT.
Limited availability. Check coverage at ee.co.uk/coverage.
Cancer doesn't care if you're deaf. But Nikki from Macmillan Cancer Support does. Knowing that most deaf patients were struggling to understand healthcare professionals, she made it her mission to change that at the Macmillan Deaf Cancer Support Project. So now patients in Nottingham and beyond can get the information they need in a language they understand. Macmillan Cancer Support. Wherever you are, we do whatever it takes to help people living with cancer.
Seeing someone you love move to a residential care home is difficult. But there is an alternative. Live-in care in their own home from a carer you choose will give them the help they need in familiar surroundings. At the Live-in Care Company, you'll get the support and advice you need to find exactly the right care. To read our 5-star reviews and find out more, visit theliveInCareCompany.co.uk. The Live-in Care Company. Trusted, respected, reliable.
With Pension Bee, you can combine, contribute and withdraw from your pension online. Our plans give Mary the freedom to contribute whenever her income allows.
So I've been self-employed for 4 years now. As a self-employed person, being able to make flexible contributions towards my pensions definitely helps.
We're making pensions simple so everyone can look forward to a happy retirement. Be pension confident. Join at pensionbee.com. When investing, capital is at risk.
Did you know Vodafone launched the UK's fastest Wi-Fi technology throughout the home?
Really?
Yep.
So what does that mean?
That means you can game, stream and surf at speed in every room.
Bedroom?
Yep.
Bathroom?
Yep.
Attic room?
Yep.
Panic room?
If you have one.
Games room?
Where do you live?
Wow, that's a lot of rooms.
Yeah. Switch to Vodafone Pro 2 broadband, the UK's fastest Wi-Fi technology throughout the home.
UK broadband providers offering comparable plans based on UK average 2-floor home. Check availability in your area. Verify at vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
With Enterprise. See if one of their
Wait. What just happened?
10-6, Friday, Tom Swarbrick on LBC, and thank God, time for some sense. Who do we turn to? LBC's US correspondent, our very own sense maker, with his American Week, Simon Marks.
Tom, it's been a very busy American week. We've got lots to get through, so let's start by travelling back in time to last weekend, to Beijing, and to Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
We had a robust conversation about regional and global challenges. That includes Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. I raised U.S. concerns, shared by a growing number of countries, about the PRC's provocative actions in the Taiwan Strait, as well as in the South and East China Seas.
The Secretary of State spoke there as though his meeting with President Xi Jinping was routine. It was anything but. He became the highest-level U.S. official to travel to China for 5 years. It took months to arrange after a February visit was scrapped when President Biden ordered that Chinese spy balloon to be shot down. And this meeting could easily have been derailed by a fresh revelation that China has established a listening post in Cuba, 90 miles off America's shores, and now wants to increase its intelligence gathering activities there. Speaking on CBS, Mr. Blinken conceded the Chinese are doing it all over Latin America.
It is something of real concern, but regardless of that, we've been going around to various places where we see this kind of activity, trying to put a stop to it.
As the Secretary of State conjured up images there of horses and wide-open stable doors, right after he departed China, his boss, the president, weighed in. Joe Biden, for the first time, called President Xi a dictator. China called the claim absurd and irresponsible. Biden yesterday refused to walk it back, calling it a fact. But this was an American week when anyone seeking consistency in U.S. foreign policy might have had a hard time finding it. Of India's national anthem echoing out over the White House grounds. Hundreds of invited members of India's diaspora here singing along at the start of a state visit to Washington by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Welcome, Mr. Prime Minister.
There we
I
go.
long believe that the relationship between the United States and India will be one of the defining relationships in the 21st century.
For India's leader, President Biden laid it on with a trowel. Remarkable given that it wasn't so long ago that Delhi enjoyed a close relationship with the Soviet Union, and today India is second only to China in its addiction to Vladimir Putin's oil. Remarkable, too, given that President George W. Bush banned Narendra Modi from visiting America because of what his administration called very serious doubts about his role in anti-Muslim riots in Gujarat, where in 2002 he was chief minister.
There are millions here who have roots in India.
Yesterday, he joined only Churchill, Mandela and Zelensky in being invited to speak to a joint session of Congress for a second time.
Some of them sit proudly in this chamber, and there is one behind me.
That's a reference to Vice President Kamala Harris sitting behind him, the daughter of an Indian mother. The Biden administration sees India as a critical counterweight to a rising China in the Asia-Pacific region, and as a growing economy eager for American products. All sorts of defense and business deals were signed this week, regardless of India's neutrality over the war in Ukraine. President Biden insisting that because the world's most populous nation is a democracy, the two countries are bound together.
There's an overwhelming respect for each other because we're both democracies. And it's a common democratic character of both our countries and our people, our diversity, our culture, our open, tolerant, robust debate. And I believe that we believe in the dignity of every citizen.
But that description of today's India is not universally embraced, and behind the scenes there were efforts to prod Narendra Modi in a more democratic direction. None blunter than the White House insistence that the Indian leader had to participate in a joint press conference alongside President Biden, something he never does in India, where he's accused of cracking down on his political opponents and the media.
What steps are you and your government willing to take to improve the rights of Muslims and other minorities in your country and to uphold free speech?
We have always proved that democracy can deliver. And when I say deliver, this is regardless of caste, creed, religion, gender. There's absolutely no space for discrimination.
While the US president was this week again talking up the strength of global democracies, America's democratic fragility was again on display on Capitol
Wrong
Hill.
button.
On this vote, the yeas are 213 and the nays are 209. With 6 answering present, the resolution adopted. House will be in order.
But the House of Representatives would not be in order as Democrats furiously protested a Republican vote to censure Congressman Adam Schiff of California, one of Donald Trump's most persistent critics in the Assembly.
Their goal is to go after people they think are effective in standing up to them and standing up to Donald Trump, their party leader. And they hope to chill others from doing what I do, It's not going to deter me, I promise you that.
As for Donald Trump, this was the week when he tied himself up in knots during a very combative interview with Fox News anchor Brett Baer, who read from the indictment that accuses the former president of the criminal mishandling of top-secret documents.
According to the indictment, you were recorded saying that you had a document detailing a plan of attack on another country that was prepared by the U.S. military for you when you were president. The Iran attack plan.
Oh, this is Fox News.
You were recorded.
It wasn't a document.
Okay.
I had lots of paper. I had copies of newspaper articles. I had copies of magazines.
So the indictment says the recording and the testimony from people in the room saying you showed it to people there that day.
Brett, there was no document. That was a massive amount of papers and everything else, and it may have been held up or may not, but that was not a document. I didn't have a document per se.
Per se, you say, but none of this is hurting his presidential chances. Today, he's announcing he's won the backing of more than half the Republicans in the state legislature in the battleground of Pennsylvania, even though he could face decades in jail. Dodging jail time this week, President Biden's son, Hunter.
I'm very proud of my son.
The president's only public comment after Hunter Biden struck a plea deal with prosecutors over his failure to pay taxes and over lies that he told when he applied for a gun license. Not surprisingly, Republicans like Senator Ted Cruz of Texas are having a field day.
What does Hunter Biden get? 0 years in prison, 0 months in prison, 0 days in prison. That is a sweetheart deal because Daddy is in the Oval Office.
It is also grist to the Republicans' insistence that Donald Trump, whose alleged conduct was far more egregious, is the victim of double standards by the Department of Justice. All over the world, this week will perhaps be best remembered for the awful developments off the coast of Nova Scotia.
An ROV, or remote-operated vehicle, discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic.
Rear Admiral John Mauger with yesterday's news that all hope was lost for the 5 men aboard, including the CEO of Ocean Gate Expeditions, a company now widely accused of jerry-rigging the submersible. We now know that US intelligence identified the sound of its implosion last Sunday in real time, but hesitated to make that information public, fearing it would reveal the extent of America's sonic surveillance in the waters of the Atlantic. There are also big questions about why an American company was allowed to put lives at risk without having to meet any regulatory requirements for the design of its craft. But those questions, Tom, are for another American week. For this one, I'm out of time.
From Washington, D.C., Simon Marks, American Week. So are we. Thanks for your time this week. Back at 4 o'clock on Monday. Get yourself to the Session podcast. The YouTube Golf channel, Tom's Orbit Golf, is available to you to while away a few hours if you must. Also, Global Player 2. You can get it for free and rewind live radio from the App Store or head to globalplayer.com. We leave you this sunny Friday evening with these words. Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend. Coming up at 9, the Consumer Hour. In for Lewis Goodall, Paul Brand.
Thanks, Tom. Coming up at 6, if you're feeling mortgage misery today, has Rishi Sunak's government done anything to cheer you up? There are some new measures designed to ease the pain. Several Tory MPs blame the Bank of England's governor for the economic woes. But this week's opinion polls seem pretty clear. Rishi Sunak may believe he's on it, to use his words, and will turn it all around, but most of the public aren't convinced at all. Those 5 pledges about the economy, NHS waiting lists and votes are already looking pretty regrettable. So do you think he is actually on it, or do you think the only thing he's on to is a hiding at the
I
next
could
election?
see traffic ahead.
345 6060 973, text 84850.
Yep, there you go.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
Is he gonna get a move on?
From Global's newsroom at 6 o'clock, a man will be sentenced next month after being found guilty of murdering a police officer in South London.
Is this
25-year-old Louis de Zoyce shot Sergeant Matt Ratner in a holding cell in Croydon while still in handcuffs in September
this
2020.
a save edit,
Matt's
or is
friend
it
Sean
a
Morgan
legitimate
now directs
load?
the Matt Ratner Foundation. He's told LBC he was inspiring.
He managed to
find.
Okay, yeah, given that I'm barely touching the accelerator or the gas pedal, yeah, it might be a save edit. Not a save edit. It might be a real job. That's why he's struggling to accelerate.
Mortgage lenders have agreed to measures to help those struggling with their repayments. Borrowers will be allowed to temporarily change to an interest-only loan without it affecting their credit rating. The Bank of England increased its base rate of interest to 5% yesterday. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says a voluntary agreement with lenders isn't strong enough.
Whoa.
Require lenders to do this so that it's not left to the individual to come forward. Many people will be reluctant to do that because they'll be worried it will reflect on their credit rating. So let's sort this out with a requirement for lenders to do this.
A man's pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of 39 people from Vietnam who were found dead in the back of a lorry in Essex. 4 other people are already in prison for their roles in the deaths in October 2019. Junior doctors in England have announced the longest walkout by doctors in the NHS's history. Members of the British Medical Association will strike for 5 days from the 13th of July in their ongoing
There we
dispute.
go.
The government says its offer is fair and reasonable. Separately, strikes by security officers at Heathrow Airport have been called off this summer. Members of the Unite union have voted to accept a new pay deal. And another heat health warning has been issued for parts of the UK this weekend. Temperatures could reach 32 degrees Celsius. The warning came into force this morning and runs until Monday morning. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 40 points at 74.61. The pound buys $1.26 and €1.16. LBC weather, rain moving across the north tonight, drier elsewhere, a low of 12. Rain will turn lighter and patchier in Scotland tomorrow, largely dry elsewhere with sunny spells and patchy cloud, very warm in the southeast, highs of 29 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Paul Brand.
Good evening, you're listening to Paul Brand here on LBC. Great to have your company this Friday evening. So, have you heard Rishi's message?
I am totally 100% on it, and it is going to be okay, and we are going to get through this. And that is the most important thing I wanted to let you know today.
Feeling reassured by that? Rishi Sunak says he's on it. On what exactly? Because from where most people are standing, and according to the polling, his government is failing. Fresh polling out today from Ipsos found 80% of people are unhappy with the government's performance. And that is on a par with Liz Truss, it's on a par with the worst days of John Major and Theresa May. Maybe that's hardly surprising in a week when inflation remains at 8.7%. All of us facing rising bills. Interest rates have gone up, of course, as well to 5%. Suddenly every mortgage holder in Britain is Googling what they're going to have to pay on top of their current payments when they renegotiate their mortgage, when they remortgage. And of course, Rishi Sunak's got his 5 pledges. Well, let's run through them. Halve inflation. Good luck with that. Grow the economy. Well, just about. Reduce national debt, it's just broken records. Cut NHS waiting lists, they're still going up. Stop the migrant boats, well, the asylum backlog is only growing too. So when Rishi Sunak says he's on it,
Honestly,
do you have anything?
I appreciate that love tap.
Maybe he just needs a bit more time. He's only been Prime Minister since October, of course. Or do you think time's up for both him and for the Conservative Party, which has now been in power for the best part of 13 years? And maybe the only thing Rishi Sunak is on here is a path to defeat at the next election. You can call me 0345 6060 973, text 84850 or tweet at LBC. Let's start the discussion this evening by talking to the Assistant Editor of Conservative Home, William Atkinson, to get his view on all of this. Good evening, William.
Good evening.
Thanks so much for joining me on a Friday night. So, how many of Rishi Sunak's pledges
Seems like traffic out of Calais is pretty smooth.
I've changed my mind on this because I wrote a piece for our site a couple of weeks ago, basically predicting how he would do on them. And I suggested with a couple of fudges over debt and economic growth, he may actually be able to kind of reach all of them in a way that was enough for him to declare, as I think the plan number 10 is, around January next year, that mission is accomplished and they can move on to their next 5 sets of targets.
And they were designed to be very achievable as well, weren't they? They were designed to be the kind of targets that could actually be quite easily achieved, for example, half inflation.
Yes, and actually the most interesting one at the moment is, in fact, the small boats, for example, pledge, which we thought was always going to be the most difficult one to achieve, actually looks like it might be the one the government might have the most success with, because Sunak has devoted so much internal bandwidth to it, and also because the success of the deal with
Yep, this guy is driving a real job.
Some flights through Rwanda can start taking off at some point this summer. They might actually have some success as an Australian-style deterrent. But coming back to the other pledges, I think this week's inflation figures suggest that interest rates are only going to continue to go up one way. Clearly, the economy needs some form of recession to try and curb the inflation that we're currently seeing, and that means, of course, any hope that Rishi Sunak had of both having the economy growing by the end of the year or bringing down debt is going to be highly unlikely. And ergo, the tax cuts that Tory MPs are praying for next summer look also increasingly unlikely. He's on an even stickier himself at Edgbaston last week.
And it kind of strike me that, as you say, some of those pledges are now in direct conflict with one another. It's such a good point, halving inflation is not necessarily going to work now alongside growing the economy.
Yes, it's interesting is that the reason why the government put halving inflation down as one of its targets, it was thought it was an easy tactical victory. Of course, the job for controlling inflation has not been in the government's control since 1997, and the nominal independence of the Bank of England. It is Andrew Bailey's job as the governor of the Bank of England to try and get inflation down. But the government thought, since all of the major predictions were suggesting inflation would be halved this year, why not sort of jump on that bandwagon and claim an easy win? Unfortunately, inflation is proving particularly stubborn in Britain, and it still remains Andrew Bailey's job to try and get it down. But as we see, interest rates are going up to try and bring inflation down.
The traffic that is coming this way towards Calais is going to be interesting to merge with.
That means hell for anybody with a mortgage to pay.
What did you think about today's measures on mortgages?
I think they've been greeted with approval by people like Martin Lewis, who's usually sort of considered the doyen on this sort of thing. I think it's about as much as the government was probably going to be able to get down to the banks. The government doesn't really want to have to do anymore, because frankly, we had something about this on Connor Home as well this week, written by Moore. People with mortgages nowadays tend to be relatively well off. I think about 75% of people paying a mortgage tend to be in the sort of top 40%.
That was too close for comfort.
So I think it would be rather unfair to expect future taxpayers and indeed the government finances themselves to take the strain of trying to subsidise mortgages. And the last thing that Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt want to be doing at the moment is putting any more pressure on borrowing or gilt yields. So, this is the sort of fudge that I think they would probably be happy to get away with. Unfortunately, I think Tory MPs are now so hooked on big spending, and that they'll probably still come back demanding more if the mortgage owners, the mortgage payers in this country continue to squeal.
And talking about Boris Johnson as well this week, do you think part of Rishi Sunak's problem is that the shadow of Boris Johnson still looms large? It's very difficult for him to make a break and be his own man at the moment, because he's always looking back over his shoulder at Boris Johnson and making sure, for example, that he wasn't there for the vote this week on the Privileges Committee report. He's desperate not to upset any of the base in terms of Boris Johnson. Does he just need to be a bit bolder and just be his own man and kind of make a break for it, whether it's on stuff like Boris Johnson or whether it's on things like mortgages, and just be a bit more radical as a Prime Minister?
Well, I think that's probably two different issues. I think on the one hand, if Rishi Sunak is obviously hemmed in by coming in after 13 years of Conservative government, with several of his predecessors, they now want fewer on the backbenches to criticise him during that, and also with many Tory MPs wanting very different things and with an awful lot of grudges to nurse. On the other hand, I think the approach that Rishi Sunak actually took to basically showing his approval of the report but then not actually voting on it was probably the best compromise he can make from a party management sort of opinion. And I think also in the last few days we've actually seen how very readily Boris Johnson news can calm down as soon as he's out of the spotlight.
That's a good point. I mean, his Daily Mail column this evening is on the submarine, for example. So he's not always going to be courting political controversy with that column, it would appear. But do you not think to the voters, though, it looked quite weak this week for Rishi Sunak not voting on it? Because I get that he has to keep an eye on party management, but isn't the bigger prize here the election and trying to persuade voters that he is a new broom and that he has drawn a line under some of those problems with integrity that persisted under Boris Johnson?
I think open fair. I think the vast majority of voters care much more about their bills than they do about the future of Boris Johnson, and that I think it would have caused a much larger given Boris supporters exactly what they wanted if Sunak had voted against them, because it would have fed into their belief that there was some sort of conspiracy to lived by Rishi last year. So I think actually Sunak probably...
Mordor never sleeps.
A pretty poor hand as well.
I'm not sure that's the case anymore. Wait, no. That's the guy who's holding the job. Cromito. Well, he's sleeping.
Psychodrama with his column every week. You know, like the rest of us, he has bills to pay. Indeed, he probably has larger ones to pay than most of us. And as a consequence, he's focusing on the day-to-day by simply writing about, you know, injections last week and the submarine this week. Those are the sort of things that I think Boris Johnson will be focusing on in the immediate term, and frankly, that most voters will be thinking about if they're thinking about the news at all, because at a time when everything else is so gloomy, those sort of interest stories are things that people rather want to engage with more than the continuing ongoing backstabbing in the Conservative Party.
And just lastly, William, privately, many Conservative MPs say to me that they do expect to lose the next election. In fact, we've seen another Conservative MP today decide not to stand at the next election, Steve Bryan. Do you think the party is kind of accepted now that defeat at the next election is pretty inevitable?
Well, I think anybody can read the polls, but I would also say that we're about 16 months out. And I think one quite interesting thing about the local election results, for example, is that they were in many ways better in terms of vote share than Number 10 were expecting. And indeed, they suggested that the strategy that Number 10 had been pursuing for the last few months was actually starting to work. Unfortunately, since then, things have rather stalled. And with the return of Boris Johnson, various gates into the news, has rather meant that Number 10 has found itself again on the back foot. But this has been a particularly bad week, and I think it also suggests that the strategy that Number 10 have been pursuing, as I say, of trying to hit those 5 pledges, has probably been disrupted. They have perhaps still a decent chance of hitting them, but I think it looks increasingly unlikely. But I would say, on a personal level, I think Rishi Sunak is probably one of the most talented politicians that the Conservative Party has produced over the last 30 years, probably since the sort of departure of Mrs Thatcher. And the team that he has in Number 10 are pretty good, and they have, compared to the chaos of the last few years, managed to stabilise the situation as much as they can. They are fighting a very difficult fight, but I do think that there seems to be enough sort of fundamental good sense within the Conservative Party, or at least its leadership, and also enough things that could go their way. So, I don't think Keir Starmer has particularly cut through with the electorate yet, that I think they might do better than expected, but that also means that they have to be rather lucky, and you can say that so far luck is not necessarily been Rishi Sunak's strongest suit.
No, he's going to need a lot of luck, I think, going by the polls as they currently stand. But William Atkinson, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Great to get your view on all of that. So what do you make of Rishi Sunak? He says he's on it. Is that your perception, or do you think, as I said, the only thing he's on to is a hiding at the next election? Do you think it's now inevitable that Conservatives are heading towards defeat? Let's take a quick call from Mark in Kentish Town. Good evening, Mark.
Yeah, hello there. Thanks for taking my call. I don't agree with all that stuff that the last guy was saying, whoever he was. He's obviously a Conservative guy. Good luck. Yeah. I think that Rishi Sunak isn't on it and he doesn't care. I think he's an opportunist because he's got so much money. He's got the opportunity to go to California and get a job as easy as anything because he's got pools in America. He's got a great big pool in India.
There we go.
The government there with his support, and he'd be very good for his CV to have a past Prime Minister of the UK on his CV. He doesn't really care, and he doesn't know what ordinary people have to do.
Do you think that's true, though? I've known Rishi Sunak since he was a Conservative candidate as a journalist. I hasten to add. I'm not giving away some kind of affiliation to the Conservative
Here we
Party.
go.
I've talked to him as a journalist since he stood in Richmond as a candidate, and when you look at his CV, he has worked very, very hard. All right, he went to a good school, but his parents were...
He needs to work hard with his money and his background and his education.
But regardless of that, he has worked hard. He has worked hard in his life, and he chose to go into politics. He broke away. Yeah, but what you seem to be suggesting earlier is that for him this is just a bit of a ride, and he's going to be Prime Minister for a bit to get the next leg up into whatever he wants to do next. But I see it the other way around, because he's left a very lucrative job in the financial sector where he was making millions and decided to go into politics where he was only, he was paid relatively little, £80,000, lot to some people, but relatively little for him to be an MP. He's not exactly kind of made a change in order to just make millions and live the high life, has he? He's done the reverse in a way. He's gone into a more humble profession.
He's got so much money, he knows how to do investments. He doesn't need to work anymore. and his wife's money, he doesn't need to worry. He doesn't know how the ordinary person lives. He's got absolutely no idea. You know, he doesn't know. I don't suppose he knows what the inside of a bus looks like or a tube looks like. He wants to travel in the rush hour, not have a tax-paid company.
A helicopter. Where's a helicopter some of the time?
No, well, it's like, you know, you've taken the words out of my mouth. So don't give me all this rubbish about he's worked hard. So he should work hard. He earns enough flipping money, and he's been in the city, and he can get a job in the city just like he'll retire and go and be the CEO of some bank somewhere and earn multi-millions for doing sweet FA and all the people under him and do the work. It is what these people do. I'm very cynical, I know that, but it annoys me because he is on it, and he couldn't really give a damn.
All right. Well, look, your cynicism is your prerogative, Mark, and I really appreciate your call this evening. Thanks so much for phoning in. Right, more of your calls to come in just a few minutes. You're listening to Paul Brandon for Lewis Goodall.
Look at all those trucks. Jeez.
17.
LBC.
Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is £14 million.
Now that calls for a dance, Dermot.
Yeah, not the best answer.
Whoa! That's a lag spike.
Get that Euro Millions feeling tonight. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Estimated jackpot counter.
Now that was a major lag spike.
2 British chicken breast fillets. Price matched at only £2.29 for 3 grams at Tesco. Ideal.
What in the... Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, good. My trailer did not get stuck.
That's true value.
That is quite the lag spike if I've ever seen it.
Twice weekly excludes promo. Selected stores excludes Express Northern Ireland. Details at tesco.com/only price match.
If you've lost money to a scammer, the system has failed you. There are safeguards in place to detect and prevent fraud. So if you've been tricked into sending money to a scammer, then we can help you get it back, even if you've been told no. CEL Solicitors are specialists in fraud and scam recovery. Rated excellent on Trustpilot, we can help you recover your money from the system. Visit celsolicitors.co.uk. When India's Cholan dynasty fuses with North and South Indian cuisine, using only the grandest spices from the Indian continent, a grand experience is certain. Grand flavours for grand get-togethers, overlooking London's Grand River. For lunch or dinner, the Grand Cholan Restaurant, Docklands. Book your table or function now at grandcholan.com.
The London Bath Company for bathrooms designed
Look at that.
the way they should be. For your free bathroom design, find your nearest
I'm
showroom
trying not
for
to
the
be...
London
I'm
Bath
trying...
Company.
Okay, I'm getting reckless.
This is LBC.
Okay, I'm getting reckless. I need to stop.
345 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Good evening, you're listening to Paul Brandon here on LBC. We're talking about Rishi Sunak's claim to be totally 100% on it. Is that how it feels to you, sitting at home, perhaps worrying about your mortgage repayments now that interest rates have gone up, worried about your food shop if you're heading down to your weekly shop at the supermarket tomorrow, worried about energy bills, of course, those have come down somewhat in recent months. Does it feel as though Rishi Sunak's on it? We're just hearing there from a Conservative. We were hearing from William Anderson from
Whoa.
Conservative Home saying that
I don't want to break my steering wheel.
His 5 pledges now. Some of those pledges are in direct competition with one another. How can you be saying that maybe a recession is necessary and be promising to grow the economy, for example, in order to bring down inflation? So these 5 pledges look kind of regrettable now, don't they? I don't think Rishi Sunak's going to achieve them quite as easily as he had once hoped. He was once mocked for setting out policies that would have been a cinch to achieve. Now they look
Okay,
virtually
perfect.
impossible. So do you think that Rishi Sunak
That is the
on
end
it, or do you think the
of the
AP
drive. It
is
was
on to
relatively
the
quiet
next election?
this time.
0345
Yeah.
6060 973. Let's talk to John, who's in Sandbach in
It was a
Cheshire.
rather
Good evening.
quiet drive for the fact that it's the Calais-Dyceburg Road. Oh well. Well, if you watched and enjoyed it, leave a like, maybe subscribe. Okay. I'll see you guys soon.